I'm Giles Dooley, and I'm a humanitarian photographer. Well, I don't really document wars specifically, but I kind of document the after effects of war. So I've travelled to a lot of countries, maybe post-conflict or when wars are kind of coming near to the end, to see really what the effect is on civilians. So in that work, I've been everywhere from Angola, Congo, Sudan, South Sudan, Afghanistan, many countries. I remember in South Sudan seeing a group that were called the White Army, and all of the soldiers are under 18. And I think when you see a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old with an AK-47 and they've really got no idea of how to use it, and then they're going to be sent out by people that are a lot older than them, to me that's the most shocking thing. And knowing that they'll probably be killing people the same age as them, it's just completely wrong. You know, although I get to see kind of the worst of people, I also get to see the best of people. So often, you know, you go to places that are having a terrible time and you see incredible resilience of people. And I definitely think war should always be the very last alternative. I think too often it's taken as quite an easy option before all political solutions are looked into. It's often used as a threat, it's often used as a way to get more power. You know, there are possibly times when war is necessary, maybe in the defence of your country, but it should always be the last option. Because if you've ever seen war, war is an ugly and brutal thing that really should never be used.
Wars are necessary on occasions. It's the one thing that I'm grateful for. My father saw 2 wars within 20 years of each other. And one thing I'm grateful for is that for 70-something years now, 75 years, we haven't had a war in Europe anyway. My name's Norman Wilson. I was a flight lieutenant pilot during the war. My service number was 154108, if you want to look it up. On March the 23rd, 1940, which is anniversary is coming up, my brother was a bomber pilot and was shot down and killed in Germany. In 1941, my 18th birthday, I volunteered for the Air Force. I was trained as a pilot in Canada, came back, went out to the Far East, joined 209 Squadron, flying boats, participated in the Japanese War for the last 6 months of the war, and then did a lot of work flying out ex-prisoners and so on and so forth. Having lost my brother so early, he was a regular RAF pilot. It was an element of revenge, shall we say. In training out in Mombasa, one night, Sunderland was a big airplane, of course, 2 crews went out on a radar, or were scheduled to go out on a radar exercise. And for the only time in my life, I didn't want to go, although I was on the aeroplane. I said to our navigator, I don't want to go tonight, and he said, no, nor do I, and we got off. We actually had to call the crew boat back to get off. Later that night, the aeroplane flew into a hill and they were all killed. I'm mad on aeroplanes, still am. That's the only time in my life I've not gone on a flight. In many ways, one of the effects of war was the enormous community spirit which developed. Everybody helped everybody else. Everybody was honest and so on and so forth. It's a different sort of war these days. It's highly technical and less man-to-man, if that's the right way of saying it.
I'm Matthew Dodd, I'm 23, and I'm in the Army, which I'm in the Corps of the Infantry, 1st Battalion Royal Anglians. I've been to Afghanistan twice. I went first time when I was 19. I was out there for 6.5 months in 2009 over to 2010, so I spent Christmas and New Year's out in Afghanistan. My most memorable experience, we used to have this little kid who used to come and throw stones at us, and he was a nightmare. You always tell him to go away, because he's throwing stones at you, and it's not the most pleasurable moment. But then we came under heavy fire from the south by Taliban forces. and he was really scared because he was obviously in amongst us, thinking that that's it, he's going to get hit and that'll be it. So I grabbed him by the back of his shirt and I threw him into the Sanger, which is a built up area where we've got our weapon systems all laid out. He was curled up in a ball underneath us as we're taking him rounds and stuff. He, after that, used to come over to me every time I come on duty. He used to try and sit next to me, and he used to steal my camera and that, start taking photos of me, and then I got a picture of him and his brother making funny faces at me at the bottom of the Sanger and that. So, from that moment, that was really good. And after that, there was a massive turning point in our first tours fight, because it started off with like 6 families and it ended up in 35 families by the time we left. With the PTSD, I found one of my friends severely drunk, hanging out of a 3-story building, asleep out of his window. Others just seemed to want to fight all the time. Others had nightmares, and I'd be one amongst some of them with the nightmares sometimes. Things happen in your time when you go away that you'll never forget, and they'll all stay with you for the rest of your time.